Shadows, Spotlight, and Revolution. Welcome back to Armchair Italy, the podcast where we explore the art, history, and hidden corners of Italy before you even set foot on the cobblestones. I'm your host, Anthony Capizzoli. If you walk into a quiet church in the heart of Rome, just a couple minutes off the bustling Piazza Navona, you'll find a quiet side chapel tucked near the high altar. At first glance, it looks pitch black. But if you drop a €1 coin into a small lighting meter on the wall, bright spotlights burst to life. And suddenly, out of the shadows, 3 massive paintings step into the room. Painted over 400 years ago by a man who completely tore down the rules of classical art. That painter was Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. And today, we are heading inside the Cantarelli Chapel in the church of San Luigi di Francesi to illuminate his absolute masterwork, the St. Matthew Cycle. How Caravaggio broke the Renaissance. To understand why these paintings caused such a scandal at the turn of the 17th century, you have to realize what religious art looked like before Caravaggio. The late Renaissance in mannerism gave us idealized, pristine figures, smooth, soft lighting, and serene setups. Caravaggio took a hammer to all of that. He brought 4 radical breakthroughs to the canvas. 1, tenebrism, or extreme chiaroscuro. Instead of gentle shading, Caravaggio plunged his backgrounds into total pitch black darkness. Then he hit his figures with a harsh, piercing beam of light, like a modern theatrical spotlight, forcing your eyes straight to the action. Uncompromising naturalism. He threw out idealized saints. Instead, he pulled working class models off the streets of Rome, laborers, prostitutes, card sharps, and beggars. He painted them, flaws and all, dirty feet, calloused hands, wrinkled skin, torn clothes, contemporary dress. He ditched traditional ancient robes. His biblical figures wore trendy 17th century doublets and feathered caps, bringing ancient stories straight into everyday Roman reality. Finally, no preparatory drawings. While other artists spent months sketching, called disegno, Caravaggio painted directly onto the canvas alla prima, which means first, using the wooden end of his brush to etch rough guides right into the wet paint layer. The Cantarelli Chapel masterpieces. When you look at the 3 canvases inside the Cantarelli Chapel, you are watching a 3-act human journey: conversion, inspiration, and sacrifice. Act 1. The calling of St. Matthew on the left wall. Before he was an apostle, Matthew was Levi, a hated tax collector working in a dark tavern. In Caravaggio's painting, Levi sits surrounded by fashionable, coin-counting companions. Barefoot Jesus enters from the dark, pointing a finger directly at Levi, a gesture echoing Adam's hand in Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling. Levi points at his own chest as if to ask, "Who, me?" It captures that exact split second of hesitation between a flawed life and divine grace. Act 2. The inspiration of St. Matthew, center wall. Above the altar, Matthew is rushing to write his gospel. Interestingly, Caravaggio's first version was outright rejected by church patrons. They thought Matthew looked like an illiterate peasant whose hand had to be physically guided across the paper by an angel. Caravaggio repainted it, giving Matthew the dignity of an elderly scholar leaning frantically over his desk as an angel swoops down, taking off theological arguments on his fingers. Notice how Matthew's foot hooks out over the edge of a bench near the bottom. It feels like it's stepping out of the frame and into the chapel. Act 3. The martyrdom of St. Matthew, the right wall. We see Matthew's violent death in Ethiopia. The scene is pure, chaotic drama around an executioner raising his sword. An angel reaches down from a cloud, stretching to give Matthew a palm branch of martyrdom right as he falls. And if you look closely in the dark background on the far left, Caravaggio painted a subtle self-portrait, his own sorrowful face looking back at the violent scene. This is one of the more emotional scenes in art for me. Part 3. A Traveler's Playbook. Visiting San Luigi di Francesi. If you're planning a trip to Rome, here's your playbook for seeing these masterpieces in person. The location. The Church of San Luigi di Francesi sits right between Piazza Navona and the Pantheon. Be sure that you don't interrupt a church service. This is an active church that gets used every single day. This is a great opportunity to practice polite restraint. If you need to kill some time, head over to Caffè Tazzadoro for a caffè normale, a macchiato, or a cappuccino, if it's before 11. If you're not in the mood for a cafe, walk to Piazza Navona, then shortly through the piazza to Piazza Pasquino, and go see one of the famous talking statues of Rome named Pasquino. It's called a talking statue because Romans would stick notes of complaint to be heard versus publicly doing so to avoid bad things happening to them. The entry to the church is totally free, but carry €1 coins. Dropping a coin into the chapel's automated meter turns on the spotlight for a couple of minutes, and there is usually someone else there dropping coins as well. If the light runs out, take your turn politely, but don't count on others doing it for you. Mind the pause. Italian churches close midday. Visiting hours are generally 9:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. and roughly 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. Sundays, they open at noon. Aim for right at 9:30 or at 2:30 to beat the tour groups. Etiquette and gear. Modest dress is strictly required. Shoulders and knees must be covered. Flash photography is strictly forbidden. Bring pocket binoculars or a camera with a decent zoom if you want to catch Caravaggio's hidden self-portrait in the dark background. Caravaggio showed us that sacred art didn't belong in distant, perfect heavens. It belonged on the gritty streets, in dark taverns, and inside ordinary, flawed human beings just like you and me. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Armchair Italy. Head over to armchairitaly.com to find more episodes to make your trip to Italy great. If you need a hand planning, grab 15 minutes with me for free through the link on my planning page. Until next time,